All right, so we're going to get started on Revit 2019 Demo 12. We're going to continue again from Demo 11. So we're going to just go ahead and open that up. This lecture is about controlling what you see more. So there's more information on controlling what you see. The most challenging part of learning Revit is definitely figuring out the various ways that people can hide stuff from you, and it's honestly the hardest part. Making walls is super easy, dimensioning is incredibly easy. Finding that missing lighting fixture, sometimes not so easy. So what's the solution? Let's talk about the ways people can hide stuff from you and why they use what they use. You get this, Revit gets a lot easier. So the first step, Revit does not have layers. Revit has what are called objects. So I'm going to go to my view 3D view, and one thing to explain about Revit objects rather than layers is that Revit objects are hidden specifically in a view. So here we go. We're going to learn about view visibility. So if you type in VV, that opens up your visibility graphics override, and you'll notice a series of tabs that are along the top. You can consider these tabs very similar to the tabs that are up here. It's just controlling a data grid of what you can see through here. So you can notice that my ceilings are turned off, so I'm going to check that to turn that on. I'm going to scroll through. I'm going to leave mass unchecked because I don't need to see that. I'm going to leave parts unchecked because I don't need to see that either. But you'll notice that everything is checked. Now if I hit apply and I hit OK, and I kind of rotate up and around, now I can see my ceilings that are in here. Now I didn't copy these across the levels when I did that, but we could have done that in the beginning. But continuing on with visibility, if I go to level 1 and I type in VV, I can actually see model categories. So that's this tab at the top. Model categories are your 3D objects. The checks mean that they're on, meaning you can see them. So if there's something you don't want to see, you can turn those off. Annotation categories, those are your two-dimensional objects. Does that make sense now? So if you pick a window, any window, in this view, so we're going to select this window, and I hit VH, it's going to hide all of those windows. So notice that all the windows are gone and that there's just a hole in the wall. That's because the windows are still there, they're just hidden. So if I go to a 3D view, they're still there. If I go to a south elevation, let's find my elevations here, south, they're all still there. If I go to west, they're all still there. So windows are there. When we turn something off in Revit, it's generally only in that view. So you have to control what you see across those views. So to go back to level 1 and to notice that our windows are off, if I hit VV and I scroll down to windows, you'll notice that they're off. So I can just turn them back on, hit apply, hit OK, and now they're back on. So VH turns off all of the elements of that category, in this case, all of the windows in that view. And so if I hit this again, hit VH, they're all off, hit VV again, scroll down, check windows, they're back on. So there's also this sunglasses section below. And what's important to note is that sometimes we just want to hide a bunch of elements to see something hidden, but want to put it back quickly. So the sunglasses are considered what's called a temporary hide. So the use of sunglasses, if I select the first floor east wall, so if I go to 3D and I select this eastern wall and I hit the sunglasses and I say hide element, it's going to temporarily hide and isolate that element so I can view what's inside that wall. So I can see the ceiling, I can see my TV stand in the TV, the dresser in the bed, and all that kind of stuff. So notice that there's a cyan box. That's how you know that you have temporary hide isolate on. So to put it back is very simple. You can come up here and hit reset temporary hide isolate and it goes right back. So you can isolate elements with the sunglasses as well. We could pick on the CMU wall that we had created before up front, Currently it's not a CMU wall, but if I wanted it to be a CMU wall, I could set it to CMU. So there's a CMU wall. Now I could select that wall, hit the sunglasses, and say isolate element. Now only that wall is shown. So that's pretty cool. Now if I reset the temporary hide isolate, now everything's going to go back. So that's super helpful. Now the light bulb's pretty helpful as well. This is the reveal hidden elements button. You can hide an individual object in a view without hiding all of the same objects. So an example is hiding a specific piece of furniture without hiding all of them. So if I go back to floor plan level 1 and I wanted to hide the bed and dresser, I could select both of those. Well, I want to see the bed and dresser, but if I wanted to highlight the TV stand and get rid of those, I could highlight these, right click, hide in view, and I can say elements rather than category, because if I hit category, it's going to hide everything. Now to get it back, I can hit VV, and then you'll notice that furniture is still checked. And so a lot of you are going to make this mistake up front. You're going to be like, well, it's hidden, but I can't see it. Well, the problem is that you hid the elements, you didn't hide the category. So had I hidden the category, it would have hid everything. So this is where reveal hidden elements comes in handy, and you get this red box. So you're going to select all objects that are in red. In this case, I'm only going to select the TV stand in this. And you can unhide those elements. Right here, there's this unhide element, or EU. So EU. And then if I hit the light bulb again, it's now back. So it came back. So that's important to understand. There's override visibility. So let's say that the pattern on your floor is overwhelming your floor plan. You generally do not show floor patterns on a floor plan. There is a different drawing for that. We'll get into that later. But if I hit 3D and I select this floor, I can change the element type to a wood joist 10-inch wood finish. So wood joist, wood finish. Back to level 1. And you'll notice that I have this floor pattern in there. It's got to go. Like, I don't want to see that. So if I hit VV and I go to floors and I drop this down, I actually don't want to drop this down yet. I'm just going to highlight this. Under projection surface, there's patterns, and I can override the pattern, and I can uncheck visible. And then hit OK, and then hit OK, and now it's going to go away. So the floor material is gone and it will not print, but it's still there. It will still tag. It will be in all the other views, but in this particular view, it's hidden. So that's very powerful. There's also the transparent section. So objects can be made transparent. If we go to a 3D view and I hit VV and I go to walls, notice I just selected and hit W. I could hit F for fire. I could type FL for flex to get to floors. But I'm going to go to walls, so WA, walls. And under walls, under projection surface, there's a transparency. I can pick in the white box, so I can select here. And I can actually use this slider to dial it up to about 70%. And I can hit OK. And then I can hit apply just to be careful, and OK. And now I can see through the walls. So that's another way to kind of get to quickly see through the walls. That's super helpful. We're going to undo that, so Control Z just to undo that. And then there's halftone as well. So objects can be made lighter on a view. So go back to the floor plan view, level 1. We're going to turn the floor pattern back on. So we're going to hit VV, floors. Notice it's shown as hidden. We're going to turn it back on. And then we're going to check halftone. So we want to come over to halftone and check this box. We're going to hit apply and OK, and you'll notice that that gets lighter. So that's helpful. Now we're going to go to a crop region. And actually, before we get to the crop region, let's do scenario 2. So we saw the floor pattern should be back on. We went back in and we half-toned it. So that's scenario 2. Scenario 1 was if it wasn't half-toned. So if I just hit uncheck, apply OK, it's darker. But I want it to be half-toned because I don't want to see it, in this particular case, that dark. So VV, let me make sure. I think I just went to floors. Yeah, I half-toned floors. No, I did furniture. I want to half-tone floors. Apply. Okay, there we go. So that's the halftone. Now we want to go to crop region. So we're going to go to an elevation view. So let's go ahead and go to our south elevation. Show crop region icon just to the left of the sunglasses will turn on and turn off that crop region. So you can hit this button right here with the light bulb to turn it on and off. And then basically we can adjust these values to crop the view to show what we want to see. So if I wanted to see half of this, I could crop it down. So we went over this a little bit in a previous lecture, but just to understand that cropping a view is very doable. So when the view is cropped and the crop box is off, so if I hide the crop region, let's turn it back on. So show it, head it down, turn it off. Now I know there's stuff above, but I may not know that right off the bat. So if I toggle the do not crop view a couple times, you'll see what exists without the crop box. It's important to see the crop box though, and you could turn off the do not crop view, and then you can kind of see where you want to adjust that. And basically toggling between these two buttons just helps clean that view up. So now you can see how easy it is to hide something without an obvious way of finding it. I showed you the do not crop view, so we're going to go back to floor plan level 1, and I'll show it again. So if I say do not crop view, and then if I show this, now I've got that region. So I can actually crop the region here as well. So if I don't want to see these elevation symbols, I could just drag this in, and then do not crop view to see them, do not crop view to not see them, or to not see them, and then to turn that box off, I can hit that. So the hide crop region to the left of the sunglasses, when an area or an object is not showing, it may not be within the crop region. So when you freak out and you're like, oh, I know I drew a wall there, but it's not showing up, odds are if you hit this do not crop view, you'll be able to see it. So an example of this real quickly is if I hit CM for component and I place a flat screen just somewhere out in space, and then I crop the view, it's still there, which means in my 3D view, I'm still going to see it. So be very mindful of that as you're drawing these, because you will start to see things appearing that you don't want to see. I'm going to go ahead and delete that and crop the view again, and now that's set up correctly. While I'm in this view, I want to show you something in relationship to this section that I had missed in previous lectures. When I highlight this section, there's a split segment button. And what it does is it brings out this knife or this slicer. And so I can actually slice the view right about here and pull it forward. So I can pull this forward. I can only pull it as far as the extent of what the view can see. So I'm going to hit escape a couple times. I'm going to drag this out to here. I'm going to split the segment from here along that line, and I'm going to pull it out to here. Now what that does is it gives me a section. So where this could be nice is if I wanted a section through this wall, if there was a window here or something, I could cut that section and break it at a specific element or interval. So that's just something that I had missed in a previous lecture that I wanted you to be aware of, was this split segment feature. So being able to split that. So that's just very important to understand. I can get it back by just snapping it back. So we're going to continue on. We're going to select the arrow on the south elevation marker again. So I'm going to turn this on, double click the south elevation. We're going to see the blue line. So currently we don't see a blue line, but here now I see a blue line. So we can move this into the garage and hide things, or we can move it out. So it's important to understand that when you're adjusting this, that things can be missing. So in level 1, if I select this value and move this back and move this temporary blue line back and double click into the south elevation, it's going to adjust the region. So you can actually adjust your crop region horizontally or two-dimensionally from plan view, as well as from the south elevation. So notice it updated it. So putting the blue lines back outside the building, the elevations and sections are essentially the same in Revit. So elevations and sections will function the same, much like this and this. Understand that if I move this section out to here, I'm only going to see to here. So that's important to know. So they're virtually the same. We're going to go look at underlays. We looked a little bit at underlays earlier, but a common visualization complaint is, why am I seeing my first floor walls on my second floor? Well, Revit has the ability to show another level grayed out. So we saw that from level 2. Level 2 is showing below. Now, that's called an underlay. So if I scroll down in properties and I look, I have an underlay with a base level and a top level. The solution is that on the second floor, you can see the interior walls and ceilings grayed out. That's that underlay. So if we left click in white space, go to this properties, and we change underlay to none and hit apply, now we're only seeing what's on level 2. Underlays are a great tool to borrow locations of things and to apply them to your level. Now we want to talk about view range. So view range is right here as well, just below the crop view and above your underlay, or below your underlays as well. So view range under extents. Now, we had talked a little bit about this, but what's important to know are all 7 values. In past versions of Revit, this didn't exist, so people got really confused about where the cut plane was cutting, what the view depth was seeing, what the top range was doing, and so on and so forth. So as long as you can acquaint yourself to this diagram, or if you get confused, you can adjust these, and you'll quickly figure out where that plane is cutting and where you're at. It is possible that you are not seeing your entities because the entities are out of your view range. We saw that with a plan view earlier for windows. But an example is the sill height of a 2-foot high window is at 16 feet on a 20-foot high wall. On your floor plan, the window is not showing. Well, why? Well, it's the view range might not cover that high window. So on the first floor, if we left click in white space, like we did, and I hit properties view range again, we can see the primary range, the cut plane, and the view depth. And so that's all right here. And so we're cutting at 4 feet. So we're only going to see what is being cut through at 4 feet. So I'm on level 2, but we'll go back to level 1. This plan view, plan region is showing a higher elevation due to this view range. So the same thing applies on the level itself. So if you come into a predicament where you can't see the value of something above, then it's probably having to do with where your cut plane is. So every plan and RCP view has a view property called view range, also known as a visible range. The view range is a set of horizontal planes that control object visibility and display in the view. The horizontal planes are top, cut plane, and bottom. So in this particular example, top, cut plane, and bottom. The top and bottom elements, or top and bottom clip planes, represent the topmost and bottommost portion of the view range. The cut plane is a plane that determines at what height certain elements in the view are shown cut. These 3 planes define the primary range of the view range. View depth is an additional plane outside of the primary range, and you can set that level of view depth to show elements below the bottom clip plane. By default, it is coincident with the bottom. The following image right here shows what's happening. I'm getting a little bit of an error because it was off screen, but this image here is showing your primary range and your view depth. So if you ever get confused, that's there for a reference. Now we're going to talk about model categories versus annotation categories. We talked about that a little bit briefly. But if you can't see your object, a familiar issue with Revit comes to light. So things get turned on and off, and frequently you have to find them. Here's a simple rule for narrowing down your search. If you hit VV or VG, you're going to get visibility graphics. You do not hit enter after typing the 2 letters in Revit, so it's just a shortcut. Same thing with like if using the align tool or the move command. So I did AL, escape, escape, MV, escape, escape. Now if I hit this modify tab and I highlight these buttons, buttons will tell you what those shortcuts are. So for move, it's MV. For align, it's AL. Now, if I hit VV, or if I go to view, visibility graphics, it's VG is what's showing up. It's the same window. So once you've done that and you've typed in those shortcuts, we can now go in and understand model categories and annotation categories. If the item you are looking for can be seen in a 3D view, it is in the model categories. Walls, doors, lines, components, stairs, etc. The parts of the category are in subfolders. If you need to hide or unhide something like surface patterns and lines in the object. So doors, there are subfolders for the swing, the frame, the mullion, the glass, the hardware, the hidden lines, the opening, the panel, the plan swing, the threshold, and the trim. And every item that has something baked into it, if you're trying to turn something off and it's still showing up, odds are it's still checked or something is still checked or unchecked within it. Now, annotation categories, going back, right now, 2D stuff like tags, dimensions, elevation marks, levels, and section marks are associated here. And then you also have imported categories. We're not going over analytical because we're not using analytical in this course, so we're jumping over to imports. Imported categories are important because usually AutoCAD drawings that were imported into Revit, you will be able to turn layers on and off as well as hide entire drawings. Now notice I said import. It's important to note that we're going to be linking in CAD files. We will not be importing CAD files, and we'll explain those a little bit deeper later, but it's important to understand that these values can be adjusted here. So you will be able to turn layers on and off as well as hide entire drawings within the section. Hiding object types quickly is VH. So VH will turn off an object type in one step. And so what that is if I go back to, say, entourage, which is this beetle, and I can see the category right here, entourage. If I select this bed, it's under furniture. If I select this window, it's under windows. Those are the categories that are showing up. If I select the floor, you've got floors. Now, if I hit VH, it's going to hide that category. If I hit VH, it's going to hide those categories. VH, those categories. Then if I hit VV, I can scroll down, turn on my doors, turn on my entourage, my furniture, and I believe I also turned off windows. I didn't. So if I hit apply OK, everything's back. So we're going to move into smart wall creation. This is still part of demo 12. What we're going to do is we're going to create a simple 2x4 wall and then a plumbing wall, which is a 2x6 wall. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to architecture walls, architectural, and I want you to select the interior 5-inch partition 2-hour. In this particular case, I already have it selected. I'm going to edit the type, I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to name it Gallatin 5/8 inch 3.5 core 5/8 inch. Now the reason I did that is I'm trying to show you what's happening within this wall. So I'm going to hit OK, and then so I've created a type called Gallatin. I actually really want to rename this and have a dash, and the reason for that is I want to keep these consistent. And you want to pay attention to things like that, because if you start tidying up your Revit drawing, it's going to make drawings easier as you progress forward and on future projects. So under structure, you're going to hit edit, and we want to make it look the way that the Gallatin College book illustrates it, but I'm going to go ahead and just create those here. So I'm going to delete all of these layers except for structure 1, and I'm going to delete all of these layers. Notice this is the exterior side of the wall and this is the interior side of the wall. That was very confusing for me when I first started learning this, so understanding that is very helpful up front. So I'm going to insert a layer and I'm going to move that down, and then I'm going to insert another layer and I'm going to move that up. Now it's only moving the selected element, but I've added those values. Now I want this to be finish 1 and I want this to be finish 1. And then from here I want to adjust this to be a gypsum wallboard. So if I type in gypsum wallboard is what I want. You'll notice this error, and it says for improved rendering, replace the current appearance asset in this material with a newer version. Don't worry about that for now. So we've assigned that, and then I want to change this material to gypsum wallboard as well, which is already pre-selected based off the last selection. And I want to change the interior to timber. I don't have timber. So in this particular case, let's see if I have something that's wood. We'll do wood stained since I don't have timber. Now I want this to be 5/8 inch thick, so 5/8 inches. I want this finish to be 5/8 inches, and I want the mid wall to be 3.5 inches. So I have 3.5, 5/8, and 5/8. I want it to be wraps, structural material, and wraps. Do not wrap, none, and then I'm going to preview what I have so you can see what's happened here. Now as I adjust these values, it will adjust the values to the left. So you could leave this open to preview what you're doing, and that will help you out. Our sample height is still set to 20 feet. So note, a 2x4 is not really 2 inches by 4 inches. It is 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. I put the gypsum on finish 1.4 to make wall joining less of a problem. So I'm going to hit OK and OK. And now I have a wall that fits the nature of what I drew. So now we will make a plumbing wall or a wet wall. Plumbing walls have to be wider because some of the pipes can be wide and must be held down. So a 2x4 wall is only 3.5 inches wide, so generally the pipes will not fit. So if we pull up an image of a plumbing wall, if we look up plumbing wet wall and hit images, you'll see a bunch of values of different plumbing diagrams. Now it's important to note we want the plumbing to fit within the context of the walls. So that's something important to know, and that's why we're sizing it the way that we're sizing it. If the wall's too small, you're not going to see this plumbing accurately. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go back to Revit, and we're going to edit the type, and we're going to duplicate this, and it's Gallatin, and we want it to be 5.5 core. So we're going to hit OK. Rename. I left the 2. I don't want the 2. We're going to delete that out. And now we're going to make it look the way that the Gallatin Revit book has it, which is just simply changing, this is all correct, this to 5.5. Now that's set, and we're going to hit OK. And we're going to hit OK. And now I have the 2 types that I just built. So let's go ahead and save this as Revit 2018 Demo 12. So I'm going to hit Escape twice, File, Save As, Project, Revit 2019 Demo 12. And we're going to hit Save. And I'll see you in the next lecture.